Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Let me start with a short interview I did with Eliud before we kicked off the Mind Speak session, which is in the edit suite as I speak. This was about a 15-minute interview, some of the questions that I had, and do take a look. Macro thoughts: oil rises above $72 a barrel in New York, last trading at $72.60. This has, of course, been on the increased geopolitical premium. The fact that Iran is being cut off, or there is an attempted cut-off of Iran from the oil markets, we've seen a stunning rise, which I sort of forecast the back end of last year. I did not expect it to run so high. Forget about oil at $80. The big rallies in forward prices. Take a look at some of those forwards. They're above 100. On the 14th of May, I wrote a piece about what I was seeing and happening in emerging markets, and I said this has all the ingredients for baking a good old-fashioned crisis. And I was referencing the 10-year bond in the US, saying the yield was around 3%. If it went to 3.5%, we were going to see some significant further round of bloodletting. But we've already seen a lot of damage. Look at this, EMFX over the last month is pretty brutal. That's from Jonathan Ferro. Zero Hedge, the Bloomberg bloodbath screen. And in that article I wrote, countries that have been flying by the seat of their pants are now being caught with their pants down. And I talked about how Turkey's lira had crashed to all-time lows. Bloomberg led a story with God help Turkey, says brokerage, as lira goes into meltdown. Bloomberg is reporting on the same. Trump is prohibiting purchases of Venezuelan debt after the election. And my point is, Nicolas Maduro said the day before the election, if you give me victory, I will defeat the economic war, he said. My view is the economic war in Venezuela's case was lost a long time ago. This is a chart of the price of Venezuelan debt, which effectively makes the same point. It's from Olga. I've got some friends on Twitter, one of whom is Joe Rollins, and we exchange photographs of things we enjoy in wildlife. But yesterday she sent me some beautiful Chelsea in bloom images. The shots of Chelsea are looking magnificent, she said. I'm looking forward to being there as early as next week in that exact area. So thank you, Joe, for those lovely photographs. Orbital ATK Antares rocket lifts off on resupply mission to the International Space Station. This is via NASA, and that took me back to one of my favorite quotations. It is a curve each of them feels. Unmistakably, it is the parabola. They must have guessed, once or twice guessed, and refused to believe that everything always collectively had been moving towards that purified shape latent in the sky, that shape of no surprise, no second chance, no return. Political reflections, New York Times, a more confident China has no hesitancy about rejecting the Trump administration trade demands while starting fresh military activity in the South China Sea. They are playing a game of chess. President Trump is playing checkers. China, of course, and I wrote about this last year, has created artificial islands, then militarized those artificial islands across the South China Sea. It is a mind-boggling geopolitical advance any which way you care to cut it. Sweden distributes "Be Prepared for War" leaflet to all 4.8 million homes. Begun sending all 4.8 million of the country's households a public information leaflet telling the population for the first time in more than half a century what to do in the event of a war. Omkrisen eller kriget kommer, if crisis or war comes, explains how people can secure basic needs such as food, water, and heat, what warning signals mean, where to find bomb shelters, and how to contribute to Sweden's total defense. The 20-page pamphlet, illustrated with pictures of sirens, warplanes, and families fleeing their homes, also prepares the population for dangers such as cyber and terror attacks and climate change, and includes a page on identifying fake news. Pretty dramatic stuff. They are, of course, on the front line in many ways. European firms doing prohibited business with Iran will be held to account. This is the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who made quite an extraordinary intervention yesterday on this matter. Caitlin Johnston, writing about Wikipedia, which she terms as an establishment psyop. That aside, I found these remarks very powerful. The only real power in this world is the ability to control the dominant narrative about what's going on. Whoever controls the narrative controls the world. This has always been the case. It's about power and the unexpected trouble that existing power structures are having, dealing with the public's newfound ability to network and share information about what is going on in the world. And this is a really important point, I think. The Borowitz report, Public Demands Investigation of Why FBI Infiltrators in Trump Campaign Failed to Prevent Him from Being Elected. Borowitz is a very funny fellow. Twitter bots helped influence Trump win and the Brexit vote, says the National Bureau of Economic Research. I couldn't find the original report, and I read what Bloomberg were reporting, but essentially it confirms what I've been saying since December 2016 when I wrote that piece, We Have a Deviated Tomahawk. And I said then, hindsight will surely show, and I was saying it was Russia, but clearly there were other actors, ran a seriously sophisticated program of interference, mostly digital. And they've actually scientifically established what the level of difference that was made. The LGBT community cheers the Pope's "God made you like this" remark, a powerful remark, I thought. And as I've said before, I really think highly of him. Currency markets, euro dollar 117.74, dollar index 93.62, Japanese yen 110.96, Swiss franc 0.9969, pound 134.16, the Aussie 0.7578, India rupee 67.995, South Korean won 1077.74, the Rial 367.71, Egyptian pound 17.9095, and the South African rand at 1263.90. The dollar continues to strengthen and is on its best run since November 2015. Has risen almost 5% in the 24 trading days since the rally took off on April 17. Euro dollar, this is a 3-month chart, we got as low as 117.20 and then bounced 54 ticks. I think we're going back to 114.50. This recent backing up of Italian 10-year bond yields looks absolutely brutal. Substantive movement in the Italian bond market. The pound slid to a new low for 2018 against the dollar as last at 134.18. Commodity markets crude oil update. You guys keep calling it a wedge. I call it channel. But whatever, we're at the top. Being that it is crude, would not be surprised at an overextension. That's Chi Girl. Gold, just below the 1290 level, obviously being weighed down by the stronger dollar. Cerberus Capital Management and Colony Capital are in advanced talks to buy out Abraj Group's. Abraj, of course, is an emerging markets specialist fund manager, Apparently, Abraj is confident of closing a deal that could be worth up to $600 million in coming weeks. Now the rumours are, according to Zero Hedge regarding Turkey, that confiscation rumours are, and that would really cause a further meltdown. Bloomberg, beyond the dollar, everything's just noise for emerging markets. Sub-Saharan Africa, Le Monde tweeted this photograph of Pierre Nkurunziza. And Nkurunziza, of course, believes he's been put there by God, and he's a big football fan. A striking correlation between Africa's war and repression and its presidents who have abolished two-term limits. That's from Kenneth Roth. RDC, Democratic Republic of Congo, Père de la Démocratie, futur candidate à sa succession. This is the fact that all of a sudden Congo has been blanketed with posters of Kabila, obviously indicating that he might be seeking to change the constitution and stay in power. He's certainly damped down the street. You remember I was quoting Virilio, the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. And I think, he's been able to push back onto the street quite effectively, and therefore is more confident that he might be able to, swing it. The pain's getting worse for Zambia as its Eurobond yield hit 10%. This is from Paul Wallace. I told in an article that Ronak Gopaldas quoted me, and I was saying that Zambia was the canary in the coal mine. Almost 1 in 3 Africans reported to have paid a bribe to get assistance from courts to avoid a problem with the police. This is from the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. Euromoney has a very in-depth article about Zimbabwe being open for business. Now Mugabe is gone, one of the poorest nations in southern Africa can see the first signs of interest from international investors, but a chaotic currency regime, heavily indebted economy, and looming elections are turning initial euphoria into cautious optimism. Delegates from all points of the planet began filling the hotels and eateries of the US capital for the annual World Bank and IMF gabfests. Patrick Chinamasa, well into his 5th year as Zimbabwe's finance minister, is among them. These meetings have tended to be tricky for Zimbabwe since it defaulted on billions owed to the World Bank and the IMF in 1999. Now officially in hock to its lenders to the tune of nearly $12 billion, a level of indebtedness approaching the country's GDP, Zimbabwe has generally been confined to the multilateral's naughty corner, a pariah for most mainstream lenders. Zimbabwe is open for business, man, declares John Mangudya, the hail fellow, well-met governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, as he leans into a handshake with Euromoney's reporter. This is the new Zimbabwe. I'm happy that there's a change of administration. We missed the opportunity. This is our second chance. You remember I wrote a piece saying the genie was out of the bottle when it comes to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has also applied to rejoin the Commonwealth following the ousting of Robert Mugabe. South African all shares down 2.83% year to date. Dollar rand, that's at 12.6390. It's all about dollar strength rather than rand weakness. Egypt, Russia to sign deal for $7 billion Russian industrial zone on Wednesday. Al-Aram. Red Sky Lagos, photograph from Paul Wallace of Lagos. Nigerian all shares up 5.71% year to date. Ghana cut its interest rates to a 4-year low of 17% as the inflation rate falls below 10%. That's a 900 basis point cut in less than 18 months to 17%. And Andre is saying that should be close to the end of the easing cycle. The Ghana Stock Exchange Index is up 28.93% so far this year. Quartz Africa is reporting on how blockchain technology is being used for micro-lending in the early disruption of Kenya's agribusiness. In many emerging markets, food retailers, along with smallholder farmers, struggle to secure loans and develop a credit history. Without the proper financing, many of them fail to scale their businesses. To tackle this, IBM has been working with the Kenya-based logistics startup Twiga Foods to facilitate micro-lending options for food vendors. Twiga Foods operates a mobile-based business-to-business supply platform for retail outlets and stores. After analyzing these purchase records from mobile devices, IBM researchers determined creditworthiness, after which they used blockchain technology to administer the entire lending experience, from application to receiving offers to accepting terms of repayment. The first 8-week pilot processed more than 220 loans, averaging $30 each, with customers repaying within 4 to 8 days with an interest rate of up to 2%. I wrote a piece over the weekend, blockchain, cryptocurrencies and avocados, and then I did a short video of it, so if you want to either listen or read, you have the choice. Business Daily's front page is leading with 2,000 ARN staff face pay delay as cash crunch bites. The Nairobi All Shares up 3.81% year to date and down 9.589% since closing at a record high on April the 5th. NSE 20 is down 6.33% so far this year. Once again, thank you for stopping by.